So tell us then.
And you see, anyway, let me allow you to take your questions so that I don't preempt you. You get your questions and then I'll...
I'm really curious. What precisely don't you agree with in some of his analysis? I mean, he's talked about 5 levels. He talked about how, the ones we see around, that they're at the very bottom of the rung. There's another level, and then there's a militia who don't own any cattle. 90% of them are not Nigerians, according to him. They go in cards are the ones who actually cause the mayhem. He believes that some elements of security agencies might be involved in this crisis.
Which is true.
Which you agree with.
Yeah,
and then he believes that there's the very top level, who are the barons who own the cattle and who also seem to control what precisely happens there. So to that extent, you agree with the professor?
Well, the problem of farmers herders is a manifestation of a problem. And that fundamental problem is failure of developmental policy and intervention in this country. We are 180 million people. And each and every one of the citizens is having the right, as stipulated in the Constitution, to live and do business anywhere in Nigeria unhindered, provided he is law-abiding and is not impinging on other people's right to exist. Now,
you're a development economist, and I'll let you expatiate a bit more on that. But I didn't quite get a specific answer to my question as to whether or not you agree with the different levels of Professor's analysis in terms of the levels of cattle herders and owners that we currently have in the country.
Well, as I told you,
yes,
honestly, the research is incomplete, and one may not give it the necessary pass mark of agreeing entirely with it.
Yes.
But some of the issues he raised are true. Number one, it is true that criminals have infiltrated the Fulani herdsmen and they are part of those causing this mayhem. It is also possible, I don't have verifiable facts because I'm not a security agent, that some of the Fulani actually own arms and are the ones carrying out this attack. It is also possible that some people might have owned the cattle and then directed the Fulani to be rearing it for them, and therefore they are the ones that are behind the attack. But the fundamental issue is these attacks have happened not one, not twice, not thrice, not fourth. What is the problem about our internal security mechanism, architecture, and the coordinated framework within which they are supposed to work? What is the SSS officers doing that are supposed to be stationed in every single local government and therefore gathering intelligence in order to preempt criminality towards rightful action? What is the relationship between SSS and the Nigerian police? What is the relationship between State Security Service and the Nigerian immigration, where people can come into our borders forcibly, if actually it is established that most of those who are engaging in the attack are not Nigerians but are other Fulani from other countries?
These are the questions that are bothering your mind. Is that right?
Well,
the questions that you have raised just now.
Yes, they are fundamental in the sense that these problems, as I said, have been happening. And what did we do as a nation, particularly we the elites, to sit down and discuss holistically and unbiasedly across the political divide, across ethnic and religious divide, that this is a problem? For me, this problem is really for economic competition. Simple. The farmers, we have a growing population. Before independence, we were approximately 40-something million or 60-something million. Now we are almost 180 million. Urbanization has increased dramatically. Elites have taken over most of the ranches that have been earmarked in the 60s and 70s for rearing cattle. And the number of cattle have increased dramatically, and therefore the need for farmland in order to feed a growing population has also increased. So there is an increasing need for grazing land. There is also an increasing need for farmland. But as I have said earlier, all these problems could have been put in place if we have a fundamental developmental policy agenda as far as this country is concerned. We are a country that is not having long-term developmental planning. And once you are a country, a developing of that nature, you don't have medium and long-term development plan in order to define what are your realistic development needs sector by sector, and therefore plan and put resources across those needs in a systematic way, we will continue to have problems like this and other similar problems in the future.
Well, definitely, we will continue to have, or we sincerely hope that with this kind of killings do not continue, because some people will say that, yes, we have identified, I mean, from what you have talked about, the issues seem to be pretty clear. What is not clear is why the killings are happening. If there's a scarcity of resources, I mean, as we know right now, there's still land, as it were, in many states of the Federation. And a lot of the states are saying ranching is the way to go. We need to modernize the way in which we keep cattle. We cannot continue to graze them freely as we used to, owing to the resources that are getting scarce by the day. Why do you think it would seem that there is a resistance of this modern way of keeping cattle?
There is a resistance because our approach to development policy is elitist. Whenever you want to undertake any policy intervention, the key factor behind its success is to be able to bring every single stakeholder to make him to understand the benefit of that. Naturally, people are resistant to change. When people are used to a certain way of doing things, it is natural for people to resist. But as elites, it is our responsibility to bring everybody on board, not to ram policy on people's throat. Has anybody, whether in Ekiti, whether in Taraba, whether in Benue, sit down holistically with the real cattle rearers to make them understand the benefit of this, and then to have a clearly defined time frame of implementation rather than that ragtag implementation that we have in Ekiti and Benue, which is manifesting in this problem?
Ragtag?
Yes, it's ragtag.
You term it ragtag?
Yes.
The governor of Benue State will not agree with you. In fact, according to him, this law, which they have now finally passed and he has signed into law, came from the people, came from the from the State House of Assembly. There was a period for hearing that did not happen. There was also a time lag for implementation. From the testimonies of the governors of Taraba and Benue, there was supposed to be a period over 6 months in which herdsmen were supposed to, get their land or even consult with them, and none of that seemed to have happened on the part of the herdsmen. It was when the time was about to elapse, that's when they began to see consultations on the part of some of the herdsmen, a faction of the cattle herders, Mieti Allah. Another faction, Mieti Allah Kauta Hore, resisted outrightly and said there was no way they were going to go with the no grazing law, which or the anti-grazing law, which the governor had come up with.
Thank you very much. In your question, you have raised fundamental two issues that I have given answer to the issues that I have raised. Number one, the constitution of this country supersedes any other law as far as this country is concerned. And the constitution guarantees the right of every single Nigerian citizen to reside anywhere and do his business without hindrance, provided he is law-abiding. That is one.
It's a good thing. I'll take it.
Yeah, because
it's a good thing. It's a good thing you put the caveat.
Yes, because
provided you're law-abiding.
the law in Benue State is unconstitutional.
Why do you say so?
Yeah, I say so because it is trying to impinge on some group of people from practicing their legitimate business in a state under the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Now, what I'm saying in effect is that there is nothing bad in ranching. I see it as a very good and fantastic idea, because if you ranch the cattle, it will not make them to be moving about and therefore losing viable energy and nutrients. It will grow more fatter, it will give you more milk. But what I'm saying is that the approach of Benue State government is a developmental policy failure. You cannot have a situation whereby you want to change something within 6 months, when for over 100 years, people are used to a given system of life. It's not fair. The time frame should have been longer. The meetings should have been more inclusive, should have been more consultative. It should not be a bottom-down approach. It should not be off-bottom approach. It should have been bottom-up approach. There is nothing bad in that policy or idea. But honestly, to give a time frame of 6 months or 1 year and say that you want a real Fulani man to change completely the way he is herding his cattle.
Well, I think on opinion, just before we go to Lagos, on opinion this is the deaths that are occurring. Benue State has suffered a huge number of casualties, and underneath this is what they say is the recurrent conflict between farmers and herdsmen. Lives are being lost on almost on a monthly basis,
not on a monthly basis, on even you can say on daily basis.
It's not very. Lives are being lost.
Yes, it's a
if you say that this should be more long term, the question will be, how many more people need to die before we begin to put in places things like ranches, which we know will eventually save lives and bring peace?
I agree with you absolutely, and I condole the people of Benue and all other Nigerians for these losses. But part of the problem is the failure of media, including you, China's television. And let me give you an instance. When the Taraba killings happened, when the Fulani were attacked, over 800 people massacred, women, children. Did you, Channels Television or any other media in this country, undertake an investigative journalism to find out exactly what is happening and to push for an agenda for the criminals that are involved in that to do that? That is one. When Fulanis are killing people in Zamfara State, did you, Channels Television or any other media in this country, bring it to the border so that those killings can stop? Within 2 to 3 years in Zamfara State, over 3,000 people were killed. Are they more important than the 70 people that are killed in Benue State? Or are the 3,000 people in Taraba, not in Zamfara, not Nigerians? Or are the over 800 people killed in Taraba State, killed by militia, armed by the governor, are they not Nigerians?
Yeah.
There are incontrovertible evidence. My emir of Kano, let me learn. My emir of Kano give incontrovertible evidence to the federal government. Nobody has been brought to book. Is 800 lives more important? Is 800 lives not more important than 70 lives?
Just a moment.
Is there any other Nigerian whose life is more important than important?
I'm afraid I have to interrupt you here because...
No, you have the right to.
Just a moment, because you're making allegations. You're asking...
They are substantiated allegations.
May I land on
yes,
this
land,
one?
Please.
You are making allegations about and comparing lives. One life is enough for anybody to raise any question that they want to, and one will believe that one life should be enough for any investigation to be launched into it.
Absolutely.
Lives should not be measured as to the number of lives that were lost, whether in Taraba or Benue, as the case might be.
Absolutely.
And I must tell you that Channels Television did launch, in fact, we did cover the burials in Taraba when Fulani herdsmen were killed there. I think that happened sometime last year. The killings in Benue, in Kaduna and in all the other places have gone on for far longer, and is raising questions in this regard as to what precisely is going on. Are you asking the question as to what security agencies are doing? Shouldn't we be questioning the security agencies? What precisely is happening? Why are lives being lost, whether in Taraba or in Benue or in Jigawa, as the case might be, instead of comparing the number of people that have been killed in these states and saying, are these people more important than this group of people? If the deaths were not investigated in Taraba, does that mean that the ones that have died in Benue should not be investigated?
Have you landed?
It's a question I'm proposing to you.
Well, I'm not saying so. What I'm saying in effect is that every single citizen of this country that have been lost is a potential contributor to prosperity and development. A loss is a loss. And what has happened over the years is a complete failure of our governance structure at the federal level and the state level. People are killed in this country. Let me take you back memory lane. When the 1987 ethno-religious conflict happened in Kabancha, in Kaduna State, I was just an undergraduate student in the university. Perpetrators were caught. People like Zamani Lekot, they were brought to trial. They were sentenced. But unfortunately, the government of General Ibrahim Babangida released them. From that day, that marks the beginning of people to take other people's lives with impunity and go free. It is unfortunate. It is unacceptable. It is a sad commentary on all of us, including myself as elites, that citizens of this country will be killed anyhow and nobody is taking action. It is unfortunate. So many people have been rendered homeless. So many young people have been turned into orphans. So many things have happened. Believe me sincerely, if the government, whether at the federal and state level, do not act across bipartisan line and forget about any primordial loyalties by looking at every single Nigerian citizen as a potential contributor to development, and therefore killing him is as if all of us had been killed, we'll never have peace in this country. People who have committed crimes of killing others must be brought to book. Whether they are former presidents, ministers, governors, or whatever, they must be brought to book. Recently, excuse me, no, let me land. I allow you to land. Recently, armed militia were caught in Benue State. They were armed by Benue State government. Over 1,000 of them. Let me land. No, you cannot interrupt me.
Professor.
No.
Professor, I'm afraid
No.
This is not my time.
Yeah.
I mean, this is television time. There is an.
Yeah, but I allow you to land. I'm trying to make a point.
I will let you continue your point when we come back from this break.
Okay.
Professor.
No problem.
Thank you.
Size was too small, that you should have done a bigger sample size. But in your anger, you made reference to, quote, when Fulanis kill people, meaning you established that that does happen. And then you accuse the Benue State governor of arming militia, even though we don't know your facts, if you have any. But my question to you is this. It's one thing when you say they did not consult properly about coming up with those laws. But how do you say a law that was validly made by a state house of assembly is unconstitutional? Could you cite the law that makes that that you rely on, saying it's unconstitutional, please?
Well, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria gives every single citizen of this country the right to reside, to undertake his economic activities, and to live peacefully in every community in this country without hindrance. And as I've said, provided he is law-abiding, because you cannot tolerate a situation whereby somebody is living within your domain and is engaging in criminality. Now, if any law is made by any state house of assembly or any entity that has any form of clash with our constitution, that law is null and void. And the reason why I'm making this statement, I'm blaming the federal government and the Russia Assembly in particular for not putting the necessary brakes against those unconstitutional laws of anti-grazing that were initiated by Ekiti State, by Benue State, and now almost been implemented by Taraba State. You see, the reality is that if the Fulanis kill somebody and it was established, the killing is an act. But it is ideal to establish why the killing. What causes the killing? Who are the killers? Who is arming the killers? And that has not been done. As I said earlier before Mope brought me down, in 1987, the crisis in Zango and Katap.
Professor, I'm afraid, can you quickly wrap this up in 30 seconds?
Yes, I will.
Is it possible? Because we're totally out of time.
Okay. Now, what I'm saying in effect is that since those killing and those people that have been convicted, were released, people take to impunity and criminality. It may take 30 or 40 years for anybody to commit crime in America or Europe before he is brought to book. I'm using this opportunity to appeal to the federal government to bring to book anybody, anyone, whosoever is he in this country that is involved directly or remotely in this killing and the previous killings, to book, so that this nonsense and impunity can stop.
That's definitely a very fine place to leave it. We have to thank you most kindly for coming on Sunrise Daily and sharing your thoughts with us. Professor Nafizi Abdullahi Darma is a development economist.